First person. My name is Zhao Cheng, I am 16 years old and live in the area of Qingyuan Middle School in Xiangnan City. I have no partner. I am studying at Qingyuan High School and I have to study until 9 p.m. every day to go home. I don't smoke or drink alcohol. I go to bed at 11:30 p.m. and sleep for 7 hours every day. Before going to bed, I must drink a glass of warm milk and practice breathing for 20 minutes without leaving any fatigue until the next day. Third person. Darkness has descended, who has exploded themselves and collected sparks. In the end of the calamity, who smashed the enemy and saved the world. It's him. It's him. It's still him. This is an era that is thousands of times more desperate than the most ancient bloody years, where all spirits perish. Everything is heading towards the end, one world after another, irreparable death. Until the savior comes with a fire. Keywords of the novel. Apocalypse Simulator, I use Kendo certificate to be extraordinary without pop-ups. Apocalypse Simulator, I use Kendo certificate to be extraordinary to download the complete text. Apocalypse Simulator, I use Kendo certificate to be extraordinary to read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Zhao Cheng. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 1. Zhao Cheng. The sun hangs high, although it is already autumn, there is still a hint of heat in the air. In the classroom, Zhao Cheng propped up his head with one hand and turned the pen with the other hand, feeling bored. The open book looked slightly new. On the podium, a tall middle-aged man was writing and drawing on the blackboard, drawing circles and squares with his bare hands, demonstrating his remarkable skills. As for Zhao Cheng, he was in a daze. Although his body was in the classroom, his mind was still focused and he didn't know where he had flown. His thoughts were very free-spirited. Although he appeared dull on the outside, his brain was undergoing a brainstorming, with many seemingly profound but meaningless thoughts spinning around. At this moment, Zhao Chengqi was thinking, if we treat this classroom as the outside, would the vast universe outside the classroom become the inside? The place where one sits is the edge of the inner world, and even as long as one reaches out their hand, they can transcend the dimensions of inside and outside and achieve a leap in dimensions. After all, to his left is the window. The sunlight outside the window is shining on me, it's a bit hot. Zhao Cheng thought of reaching out, so he put down his pen, looked at his palm, and propped up his 5 fingers. Under the sunlight, the not-too-big palm appeared crystal clear, like some kind of jade. At this glance, Zhao Cheng's thoughts continued to diverge, and he immediately jumped to the idea that the beauty effect of sunshine is not bad. This thought turned around, and he thought of some evil means such as turning fried chicken into a beautiful woman. Zhao Cheng couldn't help but smile. This kind of day is actually not bad. Not only did he live more than 20 years, but he also returned to his old age. This wave of win-win situation is almost a win thoroughly. Zhao Cheng's thoughts turned again, thinking of his past life. I just don't know, Lao Zhang and Lao Wang, they didn't survive. Zhao Cheng is a traveler, but not a conventional one. Compared to taking possession, he is closer to reincarnation. It's just a different world. However, Zhao Cheng's reincarnation was a bit out of place. At birth, there was no difference between him and an ordinary baby. As he grew older, he experienced a strong sense of familiarity when he first saw certain scenes, and gradually dreamed of fragments of memories from his past life. It wasn't until half a year ago that Zhao Cheng finally broke through that barrier, a feeling of sudden clarity in the world. Suddenly, everything came to mind and became clear. The final memory of Zhao Cheng's past life is covered in snowflakes, surging like a tide, boiling and stirring, fully showcasing the harsh and majestic nature. That scene can be said to be shocking, especially when you are in it, and the various emotions in it are not something that can be felt through video recording. That is a kind of beauty that bursts and surges with awe-inspiring force. The cost of experiencing this kind of beauty is a bit high, one life at a time. Of course, Zhao Cheng was not the only one buried alive by snow, but also a few of his friends. Zhao Cheng died clearly, but he didn't know if his friends could create miracles in life. After all, luck is something that cannot be predicted. As soon as Zhao Cheng regained his memory, he realized that he had traveled through a different world. The world now, not only in terms of area, is more than 100 times larger than the Earth in previous lifetimes. The most important thing is that there is a power in this world that is almost extraordinary. The reason why it is said to be almost extraordinary is because this power is not supernatural. There is no spiritual energy or extraordinary particles in the air. No one can control the wind, fire, and thunder without calling for wind and rain. But there are people who can use special means to temper their physical and mental bodies, gradually making them not bad and their spirits gradually immortal. The strong ones among them have various manifestations, and Zhao Cheng, from the perspective of his past life, shows extreme unscientific behavior. Wooden sword chops iron. Pop your fingers and crack gold. Even the traces left behind, including the ideas, will endure forever. These behaviors are commonplace for people in this world, just like they don't think breathing is a strange thing. People in this world do not find it strange that they gain extraordinary power through cultivation. But for Zhao Cheng, a traveler, and for Zhao Cheng, who lived in a world of ordinary people in his past life, practicing is a magical and even unbelievable thing. This is undoubtedly a cognitive bias. And it is precisely because of this deviation that Zhao Cheng developed a desire for transcendence. This is a very normal mentality. The more you lack something, the more you want something. Only those who have endured hunger will truly understand the preciousness of food. At the same time, Zhao Cheng, who once lived in an ordinary world, has also developed a strong obsession with transcendence. This kind of obsession is not possessed by many indigenous people in this world. Therefore, in the past 6 months, Zhao Cheng has changed his previous laziness. Perhaps due to awakening the memories of his past life, or perhaps due to time travel, Zhao Cheng's talent in cultivation is not poor. Although not 1 in 1,000, he is also 1 in a few thousand. In addition, he has a persistent mind and is diligent in his cultivation. Over the past 6 months, his cultivation has made remarkable progress. And when it comes to reality, it means that the vitality is more vigorous, the body is stronger and stronger, and the spirit is getting better and better. At the same time, due to the passage of time, a strange change occurred in him, and he could feel any progress in himself, even the smallest progress. That is a very wonderful feeling, but it is not ethereal. On the contrary, it is like breathing, the feeling is real. In addition, Zhao Cheng also felt another kind of change. He had a certain power or essence in himself, which was adapting to this world. That feeling, also difficult to describe, can only be described as adaptation. Of course, it could be that force adapting to this world, or it could be that the world adapting to this force. However, this question is like Zhao Qinggang's reflection on the inside and outside of the world. It may seem profound, but it has little effect on the current situation. As time passed, especially in the past few days, Zhao Cheng vaguely felt that this change was about to be completed. The completion time may be 2 or 3 days, or the next second. Zhao Cheng is very curious about what will happen once the changes are completed. If he had just awakened his memories of his past life, he might have expected to suddenly gain some incredible power, to block the killing of gods and Buddhas. As for now, after half a year of cultivation, although his strength has not improved significantly and he has not become a superhero, his heart has calmed down. At the same time, I also understand that practicing and cultivating the mind, the power beyond limits, is like a child dancing a sledgehammer. One mistake is self-destruction. Therefore, although Zhao Cheng was curious and understood that this was definitely a beneficial change for himself, he would not think about things like suddenly gaining powerful power. Because this is not a good thing. The true essence of cultivation lies in subduing one's heart. This is a Buddhist proverb, but it is also Zhao Cheng's practical realization. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Shang, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Shang Zhao Cheng's thoughts are very relaxed and imaginative, which makes his spirit extremely relaxed. This state has a good restorative effect on the mind, and in some cases, the effect is even better than sleep. This is a small technique for restoring the mind, and the only downside is that it affects the class. It's just that you can't have both the fish and the bear's paw at the same time. There must be some trade-offs in some things. The practice in reality is not like the cultivation of immortals in many literary works, where the more one cultivates, the more spiritual they become. Instead, it consumes a lot of energy, and the time and frequency of daily exercise are limited. Zhao Cheng has made rapid progress in his cultivation in the past 6 months, which is also related to giving up his cultural achievements. Of course, his abandonment was not a complete abandonment, but rather an abandonment of classroom time and a shift toward spending an hour and a half every night reading on his own. Self-study is naturally not as good as regular classes, and there is no situation where students just read books and get high scores, but it can keep their grades at the passing line. Ding-ling-ling. The bell for the end of class rang, interrupting Zhao Cheng's thoughts once again. On the podium, the teacher did not directly finish class, but continued teaching with a normal expression, as if he had not heard the bell for the end of class. It wasn't until 2 minutes later that the teacher finished explaining the knowledge point in his hand and finally gave a final word. As the teacher walked out of the classroom, it was like a drop of spark splashing into the oil pot, and the quiet classroom suddenly became noisy. Some people turn their heads and chat with their desk mates, some turn around and chat with the boys or girls behind them, and even worse, in just a few minutes after class, they cross most of the classroom and start chatting. As for the topics of conversation, there are also various, including learning, news, and celebrity gossip. Of course, the latter has a much larger number of people than the former. This kind of youthful hustle and bustle is hard to see after leaving the campus. Zhao Cheng's past life, after graduation, also had feelings, only feeling that it suddenly became deserted, and the world became a bit colder. I don't want to, but due to various circumstances, I can now feel this excitement again. The campus life in this life, although the world has changed, is actually not fundamentally different from the previous life. The only change is that the men and women in this world are more energetic than those in their past lives. This is the change brought about by the widespread practice, and the overall quality of humanity has improved. Old Zhao, have you heard that Sister Huang is going to make a new movie again? They said they were going to remake Shang, and Huang played the role of Deku in it. Even makeup photos have been released online. Zhao Cheng's desk mate also leaned his head towards Zhao Cheng and said mysteriously. Zhao Cheng's desk mate is called Zhou Yu. You means light, but unfortunately Zhou Yu is not light. Although he is only 17 years old, he is close to 1.9 meters tall, with a tiger back and a bare waist, thick hair and eyebrows, and a Chinese-style face. If he looks serious, he can be described as a righteous person. Such a strong man with a face full of invincibility. At this moment, he is mysteriously discussing gossip, coupled with a strange smile that everyone understands. The contrast can be said to be full. I'm telling you, this makeup photo was secretly posted by someone, and it hasn't been officially released yet. It's because of my strong relationship that I was able to get it. Look, it's so beautiful. Zhou Yu looked very loyal to me and placed the phone screen in front of Zhao Cheng. In the photo on the phone, there is undoubtedly a beauty. Gauzy face, willow leaf eyebrows, fair skin surpassing snow, with a fairy-like aura floating, but the most eye-catching is not these, but the pair of clean and pure eyes like a clear spring. Although Zhao Cheng does not pursue celebrities, he has also heard of the name Li Huang. In this life, 2 years ago, he also watched the TV drama Shenzhou Qixia starring Li Huang, who played the role of Luoshan in it. From then on, Li Huang became famous and gained the nickname of Luoshan. And most importantly, Li Huang is also a student of Qingyuan Middle School, which is why Zhou Yu called her senior sister. Even Li Huang'er rarely comes to school a few times a year. And every time I go to school, it even causes a considerable sensation. Upon hearing Zhou Yu's words, Zhao Cheng also felt a slight stir in his heart, not because of the celebrity Li Huang'er, but because of the movie Shang. After awakening his memory, Zhao Cheng, curious about the extraordinary power of this world, searched for a lot of information about it, including truth and falsehood. And everything, whether true or false, points to a dynasty, Shang. It is said that before the Shang dynasty, there was no practice of this kind of thing. But in the early Shang dynasty, as the Suanio descended, there were strange people in the world from then on. This naturally aroused Zhao Cheng's curiosity. As a traveler, Zhao Cheng has great confidence that the emergence of cultivation is definitely closely related to the Shang era. Among them, it may not be a divine bird that descended, but during that era, there were definitely some unexpected events. Because Zhao Cheng discovered that the history of this world, before the Shang dynasty, was no different from the past world in terms of historical figures. It was not until the emergence of commerce and the emergence of outsiders that history suddenly turned in two directions, from the world of the past to the world of the past. In this lifetime, as an ordinary person, Zhao Cheng had limited channels to understand history. Especially the Shang dynasty, it was too ancient. With Zhao Cheng's current abilities, the most accurate information he can find about business is not ancient literature, but rather the movie Shang. Because the screenwriter of this movie is a sophisticated party, and it is also a well-known business history expert in China. In this case, the content in the movie is actually more authoritative than many unknown documents. It's quite beautiful. Zhao Cheng agreed, but he didn't lie without conscience. Being beautiful is truly beautiful, and he only explained a fact, which is completely different from praising others in his social circle. Of course. Zhou Yu grinned and then his expression changed again, as if wearing a mask of pain. He howled, "I just don't know which bastard this fairy-like senior sister will be cheaper in the future. It's highly likely that it won't be cheaper for you." Zhao Cheng answered the conversation casually. "What about the small probability?" Zhou Yu smiled and asked back, showing a change of face in front of Zhao Cheng. A small probability. It's a small probability that you will become a peerless swordsman, extraordinary and invincible in the world. At that time, your nature will definitely be like a demon, and you probably won't be interested in this kind of rouge powder. Zhao Cheng is joking. Of course, you have a woman in your heart now, and 100% of them cannot practice peerless swordsmanship. In summary, when you want to marry a senior, you are not qualified to marry. When you are qualified to marry, you do not want to marry. Although Zhao Cheng was joking, there was also a certain amount of truth. If one reaches a certain level of cultivation, their mental nature cannot be compared to that of ordinary people, or in other words, only those with extraordinary mental nature can reach that level. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Sort of the kind you are listening at novel full.audio. Chapter 3. Sort of the kind. The focus of cultivation here is on one heart character. If one's intentions are not fulfilled, even if countless divine skills are presented in front of them, it will be difficult to get started, and no matter how hard one works, it will be useless. On the other hand, if one's intention is reached, even if they only practice basic techniques over time, they can reach a very high level. Of course, there is another type, with an extraordinary mind and various divine skills in hand, which is almost invincible. This concept, in this world, is already something almost common sense. But common sense is just common sense, knowing does not mean being able to do it. There is a situation where I understand all the principles, but I just understand them. It was because Zhou Yu knew that Zhao Cheng's joke was entirely based on reality. It is precisely because it is based on reality that the swordsman is even more ruthless, which can be described as a fatal blow. However, Zhou Yu still stubbornly said, "It's not me. Don't talk nonsense. The sky will age, the earth will be desolate, and I love eternity. Zhao Cheng smiled and said, I know that love will not disappear, it will only shift. A month ago, you called Jie a wife, and half a month ago, you called Mai a wife. Now that you want to marry a senior, you are still you. It is indeed my love for eternity. Upon hearing this, Zhou Yu hesitated for a moment and didn't think of how to continue speaking hard. Zhou Yu is actually talented in cultivation, and coupled with his strong physical physique, he can be said to have innate divine power and is a seed of cultivation. It is because one is too young and mentally unstable that one's cultivation is hindered. The first state of practice is called entering stillness, which is a process of purifying one's mind. In ancient times, the path of cultivation was not widely popularized. Some people spent most of their lives studying, doing knowledge, understanding principles, and cultivating themselves and their families. Later on, in middle age, they suddenly obtained the method of cultivation and were able to skip the first stage at once. Of course, before awakening his memory, Zhao Cheng's thoughts were actually even more mixed than Zhou Yu's. After all, as young people, there are few thoughts that can be determined. In his previous life, Zhao Cheng also graduated and entered society. After several years of hard work, his mind gradually stabilized. Such a life experience is undoubtedly an advantage, especially for the cultivation of this realm. The time spent chatting always flies by. Ding-ling-ling. As the bell rang, the sound in the classroom suddenly fell silent, then turned into whispers, like the buzzing of mosquitoes. It wasn't until the teacher in class approached the classroom that it completely quieted down. This atmosphere of movement and stillness, combined with the sunlight outside the window and the smell of books, always gives Zhao Cheng a spiritual nourishment. In a sense, this is also nourishing the mind. However, this only has an effect on a special human world like Zhao Cheng. Other students, who have not experienced the vicissitudes of society, do not know the preciousness of such comfort. After physics class, there is history, and in this world, both arts and sciences are inseparable. And the reason for this is nothing else, it is the pursuit of a comprehensive development of the mind. Without understanding things, there is no way to know truth, no knowledge of history, no way to inherit virtue. Mathematics, physics, and chemistry reveal true knowledge, politics, history, and geography inherit morality. The former imparts the principles of world operation, and once learned, one will not be superstitious. The latter, knowing the past, the present, and comprehending, is the operation and changes of society. And here, the pursuit of the right path of cultivation is even more important. If one's heart is not upright, it cannot be achieved. If one's heart is not sincere, it cannot be achieved. Therefore, they naturally will not do things like walking on one leg. As for the refinement of knowledge, it is a matter of college. In high school, more emphasis is placed on cultivating literacy. Compared to physics, which is a precise knowledge and history class, although Zhao Cheng is a long-term wandering and intermittent listener, he can still gain something after a class. Zhao Cheng himself has an interest in history. After all, the history of this world, after the Shang dynasty, has presented a hyperbolic shape of interweaving and changing with the history of previous lives. There are many similar people and things among them, but there are also many differences. For example, in the spring and autumn period, Confucius traveled around various countries, holding up the city gate with one hand and bravely crowning all directions. And the most crucial thing is that such a powerful master is to reason with people, not to compete with force. Nowadays, the museum in Xiufu, Luoyang still preserves the giant sword worn by Confucius during his travels to various countries. For thousands of years now, on that giant sword, there is still the sword meaning of master's benevolence. Later on, Qin unified the world, and the first emperor had unparalleled divine skills. The emperor's swordsmanship divided the 9 states, and the sword passed through every corner, making him invincible in all directions. After the fall of Qin, it was not Han who inherited the 9 provinces, but Chu. In the past life, it was difficult for personal force to influence the war situation, but in this life it is different. However, just 30 years after the death of Emperor Taizu of Chu, there were 6 new emperors in the state of Chu. In the end, Lu Guangzu, wielding a 3-foot sword, conquered the world and founded the Han dynasty. The various changes in it may not be interesting to look at the history of one world, but if 2 worlds are combined and compared, it is simply full of fun. Zhao Cheng also didn't know what the principle was inside. Despite the significant changes in history, there were always some similar people who could correct history, making the history here not completely unrecognizable after the Shang dynasty. Zhao Cheng can only speculate based on his past knowledge of civil science, whether it is due to parallel spacetime interference or something like that. There is no doubt that there is a connection between 2 worlds, because the existence of someone is the greatest connection that can be seen in front of them. If the 2 worlds were completely unrelated, he wouldn't have been able to travel here. But when it comes to how close the connection is, from his perspective, no matter how close it is an infinite distance because he has no ability to cross it. On the podium, the teacher has a strong foundation in history. When teaching, it's not just about reciting the text, but rather about the history mixed with small stories. Occasionally, he even jumps over time to connect people and events from different eras into a whole. Even though the lecture was conducted in such a way, it did not appear disorderly at all, but rather well organized. Such performance undoubtedly demonstrated its prowess. In this class, the teacher talked about modern and contemporary history. After the fall of the Ming dynasty, Li Zicheng received the legacy of the first emperor and fought all the way to drive away the Tartars. At the Shanhaiguan Pass, he killed Huang Taiji with 5 swords and nailed him to death on the Zhenlang stone. His blood dripped for 3 days and 3 nights before he could do it. The teacher's lecture was vivid, and in some places, it was more like storytelling, as if experiencing it firsthand on sight. It is worth mentioning that the teacher's surname is Li. As for Zhao Cheng's focus, it's not that Li Zicheng killed Huang Taiji, but rather the detail of blood dripping for 3 days and 3 nights. To put it in the past life is undoubtedly an exaggeration of storytelling, while to put it in this world, it is obviously just realistic. Huang Taiji is a person with extremely strong vitality. Even if he is killed, his body will continue to produce blood. Dropping for 3 days and 3 nights is not an exaggeration. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Stubborn as a rock. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Stubborn as a rock. The afternoon schedule includes 1 physics class, 1 history class, and 1 Kendo class. Kendo class takes up 2 classes, similar to physical education classes in previous lives, but its importance far exceeds that of physical education classes, and there is no situation where cultural subjects occupy class hours. A strong youth makes a strong country. The reason why cultivation is flourishing in this world, even almost universally, is not only because cultivation can obtain extraordinary power, but more importantly, it is the exercise of spiritual will. It can cultivate qualities of stability, courage, fearlessness, and integrity. Even if it is just a matter of embarrassment, it has a great upward promoting effect on the growth of young people. Therefore, the country has put in a lot of effort in this regard. As for the effect, it is also significant, and it can be said that each generation is stronger than the other. In the changing room of the gymnasium, Zhao Cheng changed into a loose white exercise suit. In the mirror, a delicate young man is reflected, neither handsome nor ugly, belonging to the kind that is difficult to recognize when placed in a crowd. However, if you observe carefully, you will find that his eyes are very calm, and you can feel a sense of firmness. Over the past 6 months, Zhao Cheng's appearance has not changed much, only his body has become a bit wider and thicker, but his inner self has undergone tremendous changes. From scattered and fragile, gradually becoming firm, like loose sand, polished by flames, gradually turning into stone. Of course, time is still short now, and this stone may not be strong enough, but as long as we persist in not falling, one day the stubborn stones will gather to become hills, or even transform into the earth, as stable and heavy as the earth, and cannot bear to move like the earth. This is a phrase used in Buddhist scriptures to describe bodhisattvas. But in reality, there are really strong people, and the soul can be so powerful. As for Zhao Cheng, he is just starting out. After changing clothes, Zhao Cheng and his classmates walked out of the changing room, and what they saw was a spacious venue. The sports hall in front of us is a huge dome structure, supported by silver-white steel beams and covered with highly transparent high-strength glass. The sky can be seen at a glance, simple and luxurious. Zhao Zhizhi studied at Qingyuan Middle School in Xiangnan City. Xiangnan is just a third-tier small city, and according to reason, teaching resources are completely incomparable to middle schools in first and second-tier cities. And the previous situation was indeed the same. The reason why there is a big star senior sister in the school is that her hometown is Xiangnan, and before she became famous, she studied in the middle school department of Xiangnan Middle School, which is why high school was also named here. This also made the inconspicuous Qingyuan Middle School suddenly become popular. But that's all there is to it. The internet has no memory. After a fire, Qingyuan Middle School also recovered. However, just 4 years ago, things suddenly changed. At that time, Qingyuan Middle School was still called Xiangnan Third Middle School. According to the local dialect of Xiangnan, Qingyuan High School is a prominent figure in the first row. Due to its old relationship with Xiangnan, they provided some assistance, and immediately, a large amount of resources flooded in, making a leap in both the teaching environment and teaching staff. In some places, it is no less than that of first-tier cities. In this situation, Qingyuan Middle School, which was originally at the bottom in Xiangnan City, suddenly became the highest in Xiangnan. The school has become stronger, and the admission threshold has naturally been raised all of a sudden. Fortunately, the enrollment in Qingyuan only enrolls students from junior high school to junior high school, and the enrollment period is 6 years. And Zhao Cheng, at that time, happened to be in the first year of junior high school in Qingyuan and hitched a ride. Zhao Cheng remembers that at that time, there was a lot of controversy in Xiangnan due to enrollment issues. Many voices online say that this is unfair to other students in Xiangnan, especially middle school students. At that time, Qingyuan's response was that he would not abandon any of Qingyuan's students. Of course, a number of school selection quotas have also been provided, which belong to the expansion of enrollment. The gymnasium was built at that time, with a construction period of 3 months. According to rumors, it cost nearly 10 small goals, making it the most expensive building in Qingyuan. As for the teaching staff, if we don't mention the cultural courses, let's talk about Kendo classes. Previously, Qingyuan classes were held every 2 weeks. It's not that we don't want to have more classes, but because the teaching staff is limited and we really can't afford to have more classes, we can only follow the minimum level set by the country. As for now, with 2 classes a week, the teacher's level has also risen several steps compared to before, all of whom are true swordsmen. Swordsman level is the second realm of cultivation. If placed in ancient times, it would be like entering the hall and entering the room, which is already enough to support a facade of inheritance. In ancient times, it was not possible to have a character like this among 100,000 people. The popularization of modern practice also belongs to 1 in 100,000, and 1 out of 10,000 people can be chosen. The population of Xiangnan City is several 100,000, and there are only dozens of such people. With a population of hundreds of thousands, including only middle schools, there are also nearly 10 in southern Hunan. In addition, as people move towards higher places, these talents tend to develop in big cities, which makes them rare. A swordsman, if he goes to work as a private tutor selling courses, every hour is calculated in thousands, which is still 1.1 guidance. If there are more people, the price will only be higher. The energy expended in guiding one person is naturally vastly different from guiding a group of people. It may not seem like there are many Kendo classes in a school, but when you think about how many classes and students a school has, you can tell the cost of investment. Moreover, the tuition fee level in Qingyuan is the same as other high schools. As for the tuition fees for teaching students, the expenses for a major Kendo course alone in one semester are already beyond their means. As for speaking, the swordsmanship level of the teacher who taught swordsmanship courses to people before Qingyuan may not be as good as Zhao Cheng now, but it is only stronger than an experienced one. Of course, during their heyday, they were certainly more powerful than Zhao Cheng now, but as they grew older, most people would regress in terms of vitality and soul. It's not that there are older and stronger monsters, but obviously, those monsters won't appear in such schools. This is in terms of teaching staff, and as for the teaching environment, it can already be seen from the venues in front of us. Close your eyes, but leave a glimmer of light in your eyes, which carries the meaning of dawn breaking. At the moment when dawn comes to an end, the sun leaps into the sky, transforming into a yin-yang creation. Although the transformation of yin and yang is far away, the meaning is not far away. Mastering it well can cultivate and refine the spirit. At the same time, the sword shape in the heart must be long-lasting. Only by establishing a root can the meaning truly be used for oneself, and the sword shape in the heart is the root of the meaning. Remember this, without the sword shape, everything is just a rootless duckweed, and nothing can be shaken by wind or rain. Now inhale. A gentle and rich voice echoed in the quiet room, and everyone in the room, including Zhao Cheng, followed suit. True transmission of one sentence, false transmission of 10,000 books. The content in this voice is undoubtedly a true transmission. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. 100 Years of Kendo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. 100 Years of Kendo. Who? Suck. Who? Dot. Accompanied by the sound, everyone sitting in the quiet room adjusted their breathing rate accordingly. Breathing and visualization nourish the spirit. Visualization is important, but breathing is more important. However, the rhythm of breathing is not fixed and needs to be adjusted according to the different constitutions of each person. There is no such thing as everyone having the same rhythm. However, although there is no exact similarity, the human body is not a machine that requires precision to reach the micrometer level. The rhythm is slightly different, and there will be no complications. At most, the effect is worse. The swordsman's eyesight and swordsmanship are undoubtedly extremely impressive. Based on this basic breathing technique, he guides people like Zhao Cheng. Even if an average is taken in terms of breathing rhythm, the effect may not be as effective as 1.1 guidance, but it is still far more effective than exploring alone or practicing with an audio and video online. Private classes at the swordsman level are expensive, and there are also reasons for their high cost. Of course, Qingyuan is not inferior to wealthy students who do not attend public Kendo classes at school. Instead, they spend money to hire 1.1 guidance after class. But for ordinary students, the school's Kendo course is the best teaching resource. Previously, there were comments online stating that it was unfair to other students in Xiangnan, which is why. Being guided to practice can lead to better results, but more importantly, it is important to correct some bad breathing habits based on guidance. In a short period of time, there may not be any visible results, but if the time is extended to 5, 10, 20 years, and accumulated over time, the gap suddenly widens. Zhao Cheng breathed with the guidance of the voice, stroking the wooden sword on his legs with both hands, imagining in his heart and emptying his body. The fragrance in the nose makes one's mind clear and more focused. The source of fragrance is an incense burner in a quiet room, which has a calming and contemplative effect and is quite expensive, not affordable for ordinary people. Although the breathing rhythm is guided by sound, Zhao Cheng does not completely follow the sound's breathing. After a breathing cycle, there is about 5% of the time, which is slightly different from the rhythm, either faster or slower. However, overall, it is not much different from the guided rhythm. Zhao Cheng's body is adapting, or in other words, naturally assimilating breathing techniques to better adapt to himself. As long as one cultivates, there will be progress, even if the progress is subtle to the extreme. This is undoubtedly an ability that approximates a superpower. Of course, there is a gap between the progress achieved through personal exploration and the progress achieved through guidance from others. If there were any future technological instruments to monitor Zhao Cheng's body at this time, the change would probably be a proficiency level of breathing method +1+1+1. It wasn't until nearly 20 minutes later that the voice suddenly said, "Stop." At that moment, everyone's breath froze, their breathing rhythm was interrupted, their visual state was also interrupted, and their minds instantly turned to reality. The key to cultivation lies in moderation of relaxation and relaxation. Blindly contemplating is not a good thing. It is difficult for evil spirits to enter the holy realm, and a fragile body cannot support a strong spirit, which will only consume the source of life. "Get up everyone, go gather outside in Zone 3. The voice suddenly changed from gentle to stern. In the field, after practicing the breathing concept for nearly 20 minutes, everyone became energetic and there was no sign of the fatigue of the whole day. This is the function of the concept of breathing, nurturing the spirit. Among them, there is more nourishment than refinement. If you really want to exert the effect of cultivation, you still need to cultivate dynamic skills. Under the combination of movement and stillness, both physical and mental health can be effectively exercised. However, there is also a time limit for practicing the visualization breathing technique, at least for people like Zhao Cheng. There is no saying, "I first practice Jingdong to rest and recuperate, then practice Donggong until I am exhausted, and then rely on Jingdong to cultivate myself." Because the cultivation of breathing is not a true rest, but a stimulating exploration of potential and the source of life. In a short period of time, practicing the breathing technique once is to tap into potential, while practicing twice is to lose the source of life. Not only does it have no refreshing effect, but it will also become even more tiring. Forcefully squeezing oneself will lead to premature aging in the short term, and over time, it will result in sudden death. When Zhao first awakened his memory, he became the most efficient way of practicing and had some research in this area. Zone 3 is a corner inside the venue. Inside the venue, there are enclosed rooms, only quiet rooms and changing rooms. The rest of the area is divided into blocks using lines. When practicing Jingdong, the space should be small to make it easier to enter stillness. However, when practicing Donggong, the scene should be open, and only with a broad perspective can one's mind be clear. On the way to Area 3, Zhao Cheng's gaze remained on the guidance teacher who was walking at the front. This mentor is a middle-aged person who appears to be only in his 30s but is actually close to 50 years old. He has broad and thick palms and a tall figure. And the most eye-catching thing is still his spine, always standing upright, like a thousand-blade mountain with a majestic momentum. Zhao Cheng knew that this was one of the characteristics of the swordsman level, and after his pure and solid spirit reached a certain level, he developed his own momentum. However, compared to spirit, the most powerful swordsman is still his physical body. If one reaches the pinnacle of being a swordsman, their spirit is purified to the extreme, and their physical body is condensed to the limit. Every move, they can gather 10% of their body's strength in a single inch. Ordinary people only use 20% of their power, which refers to situations where they are proficient in using force techniques, otherwise it will only be lower. Here, it is not a matter of skill, but a difference in the structure of the human body. According to scientific research, the nervous system of swordsmen is far more developed than that of ordinary people. This is a spontaneous evolution or adaptation of the body triggered by spiritual purification. The key to this world's cultivation system is to drive the physical body with the soul and force it to evolve. Upon arriving in Zone 3, without the need for guidance from the teacher, a group of people spontaneously formed a formation, then dispersed and separated to create a distance. Then, with a start, they each held wooden swords and began to move in unison. This is dynamic work. And this dynamic technique, combined with previous static techniques, is the complete 6th edition of the 17th set of basic swordsmanship. This set of swordsmanship, the initial version, originated 100 years ago. At that time, under the guidance of the number 1 figure, the country convened a large number of martial arts masters, which lasted for 5 years. After countless additions and deletions under the guidance of the Hao Shukijing, the first draft of basic swordsmanship was finally produced. In the following century, this set of swordsmanship continued to evolve. Until now, this swordsmanship may not be the fastest or most effective in laying the foundation, let alone the most solid foundation, but it is definitely the most stable, the lowest difficulty, and most suitable for ordinary people. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Mastery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Mastery. Swordsmanship is not just about waving it one by one. With such cultivation, even the most exquisite swordsmanship is only inferior. Only by infusing the spirit, the whole mind, and focusing on observing and feeling each move, from individual parts to overall changes, can one immerse oneself in it. If that's the case, even if there is only one sword, it is also superior swordsmanship. Spirit. There must be spirit in swordsmanship. Only in this way can it be a sword. Otherwise, it will just be a rotten iron bar, useless. The voice of the mentor echoes. In the field, Zhao Cheng and others have already begun to wield their swords. The wooden sword is swung in one move, but the speed is not fast and you cannot feel much explosive power. But if you observe carefully, you will feel a sense of stability. The essence of this set of swordsmanship lies in stability, not in explosive swordsmanship, but in focusing on exercising one's control over the sword. A person who is unstable in practicing swordsmanship and pursues explosive behavior is like running without learning how to walk, which is of no benefit. When practicing this practice, the more stable the sword path, the deeper one's proficiency. It is said that if one surpasses the extreme realm, as long as they hold the sword in their hand, they will not be knocked down. Of course, this realm is not something that ordinary people can achieve. Zhao Cheng waved his wooden sword, and the voice of his mentor echoed in his ears. However, he was not affected by the sound at all, and every move was full of energy and spirit. Whether or not there is an infusion of essence and spirit during sword wielding is something that ordinary people may not be able to discern if their eyesight is insufficient. However, this kind of thing can deceive others, but it cannot deceive oneself. After infusing his essence and spirit, Zhao Cheng's every move had a sense of pulling and moving his whole body. His entire body was like a precision machine, moving in harmony and unity. If it weren't for breathing and contemplating for nearly 20 minutes before, which stimulated the potential of life, pure sword dancing would not have felt this sense of harmony. During this process, Zhao Cheng could perceive that every trace was imprinted on his body, remembered by his body, imprinted in his spirit, and remembered by his spirit. Although this trace may be faint, it accumulates into many. As time goes by, sand will eventually accumulate into a tower, and water will converge into a river, revealing an extraordinary atmosphere. In this state, Zhao Cheng's perception of time became blurred. It was not like spending time like a year, but rather like playing an interesting game. Time was infinitely shortened. It feels like only a moment has passed, but in reality, a long period of time has passed. At this moment, the guiding teacher also walked around the crowd with a wooden sword, sometimes waving it casually, cutting through the air and colliding with the wooden sword in the hands of other students. During this collision, the power was transmitted, and the student who was struck by the wooden sword immediately became aroused. The power changed, and the sword path that was originally not smooth in operation was immediately connected. This kind of insight, this method, and the minimum requirement are all swordsmen, and they cannot be newcomers to swordsmanship yet. They must be in this realm, have a period of sedimentation, walk a distance, and purify their spirit to a certain extent before they can use this method to correct their swordsmanship. And this teaching method is undoubtedly a true hands-on teaching. Although there are too many people to balance details, details can be fully grasped and felt by oneself. The most important thing is that the framework has been corrected and will not be distorted. I don't know how long it has been, but Zhao Cheng suddenly felt waves of fatigue surging in. He lost his previous sense of clarity, and his sense of body became obscure, as if separated by a layer of gauze, unable to see clearly. When Zhao was founded, he knew that this was the limit. So, without any greed, he immediately and slowly withdrew his sword. He changed his surroundings and found that his classmates were already resting, and he was the last one. And from such a detail, one can also see the difference in swordsmanship proficiency. Zhao Cheng, in the past 6 months, your swordsmanship has made rapid progress. Now that you have become proficient in swordsmanship, you are the only one in class 7. You have reached this level of swordsmanship, which shows that you have put in a lot of hard work in your daily life. The instructor said. Before, he didn't pay much attention to Zhao Cheng. At that time, Zhao Cheng's swordsmanship was only in the middle of the class, neither up nor down, and not outstanding. It is normal for a young person to have an unstable mind and no one to lead by example. With an unstable mind, it is difficult to make significant progress in swordsmanship. However, just half a year ago, Zhao Cheng's swordsmanship suddenly began to advance by leaps and bounds. It took him only half a year to go from being a beginner to becoming proficient today. He doesn't think it's different about this either. There have been many such incidents throughout history. A person's determination is actually a very sudden thing. Some people, after experiencing some things, become determined as if they have changed someone, and in a short period of time, they will achieve remarkable results. Of course, there are also people who, after making a decision, persevere for a few days before returning to their original form. And Zhao Cheng undoubtedly persisted and achieved phased achievements. He doesn't know what Zhao Cheng went through to achieve this change, nor is he interested in knowing that everyone has their own destiny. Zhao Cheng's ability to forge ahead is a good thing. Sophisticated, it is indeed a skilled level of swordsmanship. As I just said, his persistence in wielding the sword for so long is definitely a breakthrough. There aren't many swordsmanship at this level in my 2nd year of high school, right? There should be more in my 3rd year, but not too many. The students around heard the guidance teacher's words, but they began to discuss in a low, buzzing voice. The swordsmanship here can be roughly divided into 5 stages. Beginner, proficient, proficient, master, and master. Of course, this is a modern term, but in ancient times it was called beginner's practice. Practice makes perfect, extraordinary, return to simplicity, and immeasurable. And being proficient, although only in the 2nd stage and seemingly insignificant, is already extremely impressive among a group of high school students. Only Zhao Cheng's classmates are at the entry level now, with a distance of familiarity and not short distance. The called beginner refers to being able to proficiently use one move, one pattern at a time, without making mistakes, and also being able to infuse essence and spirit into the sword path. If there is no essence and spirit in the sword, no matter how exquisite the sword technique is, it is only an outsider and vulnerable to a single blow, not even a beginner. Many high schools have poor teaching staff, with some students lacking even entry-level swordsmanship. Zhao Cheng's class was able to get all the students started, thanks to the teaching environment in Qingyuan. As for being proficient, to be precise, it should be mature and pure, gradually becoming refined after reaching a certain level of proficiency. This kind of purity refers to the purity of the sword path, the unstoppable operation of strength, and the purity of the spirit, just like forging iron, starting with repeated hammering, and knocking out impurities. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Kendo class. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 7. Kendo class. After reaching a pure and refined stage, one becomes proficient in swordsmanship. At this stage, swordsmanship has deepened and is no longer simply a matter of rote learning, but rather begins to have one's own understanding. It is no longer confined to swordsmanship and can be freely wielded. Once you fully understand this swordsmanship, reinterpret it with your own understanding, and fully utilize it for your own use, you are at the master level. As for the master, this level was called incalculable in ancient times. Nothing is infinite, quantity is measurement. At this stage, the original limits of swordsmanship have been completely broken, and it can be said that corruption has been transformed into magic, making swordsmanship reach a broader world. Simply put, for a swordsmanship, if it reaches level 10 at full level, the beginner is LV1.LV3, the proficient is LV4.LV6, the proficient is LV7.LV9, the master is LV10, and as for the master, it is LV11.LV. Yes. The specific level one can reach depends on the talent and circumstances of the cultivator. For ordinary people, master-level swordsmanship is the limit of effort. Although diligence can make up for weakness, being a master is no longer something that can be achieved simply by diligence. Below a master, one can still rely on the accumulation of time to surpass the limits of their own talents. For example, they only practice one sword technique in their lifetime. However, a master is a kind of extreme change, either possessing extraordinary talents or extraordinary experiences that cannot be replenished diligently. At this moment it was personally confirmed by the instructor that Zhao Cheng's swordsmanship had reached a level of proficiency, which naturally caused a small sensation. It's not that during these times, they couldn't see Zhao Cheng's progress, it's just that they didn't expect the progress to be so significant. Everything is afraid of comparison. Half a year ago, they were still silent, but now they are one level ahead of them all at once. Coupled with being classmates, it is inevitable that there will be a slight sour taste in their hearts. This kind of emotion is like in learning. If a classmate has always been a top student, everyone will just take it for granted, but if there is a student who is a scumbag, suddenly and quietly becomes the top student in the class, everyone's emotions will naturally rise. Are you interested in joining Qingyuan's Kendo class? The instructor smiled and asked. He naturally listened to the discussions of the students around him, and he just smiled knowingly. This is a good thing. Only by comparing can there be progress. His public praise may not be without the intention of stimulating these students. If it could stimulate another, Zhao Cheng, it would undoubtedly be a great thing. In fact, the class he was most optimistic about before was undoubtedly Zhou Yu, a big guy. Unfortunately, Zhou Yu was too casual, talented, but not hardworking enough. Not unwilling, but insufficient, lacking a determination, is why swordsmanship is always difficult to enter the room. For a teacher like him, being able to teach an excellent student is undoubtedly a matter of pride. If there is no intention of teaching and educating people, he will not come to guide students. If he really wants to make money, swordsmen never lack the means to make money. Many things make money much faster than teaching and educating people. And with the guidance of the teacher, there was a sudden silence around. The Kendo class in Qingyuan belongs to a special sequence and is not a regular class. The so-called joining the swordsmanship class is not to make Zhao Cheng leave the existing class, but to receive additional swordsmanship guidance and resource subsidies after class. There is only one school in the entire Xiangnan City, Qingyuan, where there is a Kendo class. The threshold for joining a Kendo class is naturally not low, and the minimum standard is proficiency in swordsmanship, which is only one of the conditions. In addition, the most important thing is to have the recommendation of a mentor. In short, students in the Kendo class are at the lowest level of proficiency in swordsmanship, and students at the highest level of proficiency in swordsmanship may not necessarily be members of the Kendo class. The reason for such seemingly unfair rules is mainly due to limited resources, which refer not to material things, but to guiding teachers. The so-called Kendo class may sound like a class, but in reality, it is a mentor who leads a few students. A mentor model similar to that of a master's or doctoral degree. The so-called recommendation of a mentor is actually that the mentor collects students themselves. In this situation, those who are more enthusiastic about teaching students will naturally receive more writing, while those who are more lazy will naturally receive less. Although Qingyuan Middle School has a short development period and a small area, there are not many good students, but after 4 years, there are still some students who are proficient in swordsmanship, and not all skilled students are taken in by mentors. Kendo is not only about talent, but also about character. Talent determines the speed of cultivation, but character ultimately determines how far one can go. Among them, there are situations where students have excellent talents and extremely poor willpower. These students have limited achievements and may make rapid progress in the short term, but they get stuck later on. Zhao Cheng was able to receive the invitation because his supervisor had already recognized his thoughts and made up his mind. This is undoubtedly extremely rare at Zhao Cheng's age, and it is also a good talent in the eyes of many teachers. Not afraid of poor talent, but afraid of poor character and bad thinking. This kind of student who accepts is a disaster or not a blessing. After a brief moment of silence, there was a commotion. The scene before me was like I was still studying, but my inconspicuous classmates suddenly graduated early. Not to mention, at the same time as graduation, I also heard the news that my classmate was directly applying for graduate school. And for myself, not only is graduation far away, but as for being admitted to graduate school, it is also a fantasy. Upon hearing these words, Zhao Cheng also felt a stir in his heart, but fortunately, he was reincarnated and not a true high school student. In addition, in the past 6 months, he has cultivated a bit of calmness through his spiritual cultivation. Therefore, he did not panic or feel embarrassed in the face of such a scene, but responded calmly, "I am very interested." As soon as Zhao Cheng's voice fell, someone cheered and said, "Teacher Wu, I would like to introduce myself. You can accept 1 student as well as 2 students. Why don't you also accept me together?" Upon hearing this, Wu Nian didn't get angry, but responded with a smile, "If you can master swordsmanship within 3 months, I'll take you. Zhou Yu, do you have confidence?" After asking, Wu Nian didn't wait for Zhou Yu to answer before continuing, "A real man, you can't say you're not good, especially in front of so many female classmates." Upon hearing this, even though Zhou Yu's face was not thin, it was still not thick enough. He was just a young man, and his ears immediately turned red. He said stiffly, "If it can be done, it will definitely be done. Teacher Wu, please wait and drink the Jingshi tea I gave you." Upon hearing such words, everyone burst into laughter. After this interruption, the atmosphere also eased. "Alright, everyone take a break and move freely. If you have any questions, you can also come and ask me." Wu Nian clapped his hands and said seriously. A Kendo class lasts for a full hour and 40 minutes, but from changing clothes, sitting still, to now, it only takes less than an hour. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Panel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Panel. As for the remaining time, it is not for waste. Firstly, after practicing swordsmanship, everyone is exhausted and may not even be able to walk far, requiring time to rest. Secondly, it is time for students to ask questions. In practice, there are always many problems, and everyone's situation is different, so the guidance of teachers is more needed. Upon hearing this, Zhao Cheng sat down on the spot and breathed calmly, using the rhythm of breathing techniques. Breathing without visualization does not consume vitality, but can accelerate the recovery of physical strength. Some people, with swordsmanship ingrained in their bones, are constantly able to maintain a natural breathing rhythm in their bodies. Zhao Cheng naturally has a considerable distance from such a state, not intentionally challenging his breathing. Once forgotten, his breathing naturally becomes chaotic. In addition, legend has it that there are even stronger people who not only instinctively maintain the rhythm of breathing, but also maintain the visual scene of their spirit. It can be said that they are constantly practicing and becoming stronger. Of course, Zhao Cheng not only never saw such people in reality, but even online, he only heard similar rumors and no one really stood up and said he could. Breathing is getting stronger, and this kind of thing is somewhat exaggerated when you think about it. After all, humans are not perpetual motion machines, and even the strongest person will be tired and need rest. In the field, some people go to the teacher to ask questions, while others continue to rest and chat with others. Especially after eating a big melon on site just now, everyone's desire to chat was even higher. Zhao Cheng noticed that many eyes were focused on him. This kind of induction gradually emerged as his swordsmanship progressed and his spiritual and physical body began to purify. In fact, this ability is also possessed by ordinary people. Many people occasionally feel that someone is looking at them from behind, and when they turn around, they will find that someone is really looking back. This is an instinctive reaction, but it is difficult to control, so it appears to be agile at times. And those who practice swordsmanship, in the process of gradually purifying their spirit and body, their instincts will also gradually strengthen and become effective, gradually mastering this ability. After all, the purification of the physical body and spirit is inherently a form of control over the physical body and spirit. When he first acquired this ability, he was also curious for a while, but after a while, he became accustomed to it. Ignoring these gazes, Zhao Cheng slowly let go of his thoughts. Unlike his previous wild thoughts, at this moment he didn't think of anything and just sat there dumbfounded. In this state, his five senses become more sensitive, especially his hearing, and he can hear many sounds that he couldn't hear before. This ability is also present in ordinary people when they are still, but it is not as strong as his. And once there are too many distractions in his heart, this hearing will dissipate. Zhao Cheng heard many conversations from his classmates, and today, right now, he is undoubtedly the center of the topic. Some people have a low voice, while others have a high voice, and undoubtedly Zhou Yu has the loudest voice among them. And coincidentally, no one came to disturb Zhao Cheng, because everyone knew that the period just after practicing was the most tiring, and it would take at least 3 to 5 minutes to slow down a bit. Whether it's camaraderie or not, there may be some people who are a bit cheap among classmates, but there are also very few who are truly bad. Zhao Cheng felt calm in his heart, only realizing that after the previous round of cultivation, his mind had calmed down a little. Although it wasn't much, there was definitely progress. This feeling is not an illusion, but a real existence. This is one of his abilities, which allows him to accurately feel his own progress, or in other words, all positive changes. In the past 6 months, he has been able to calm down and practice diligently, which is related to this strange perception. For ordinary people, the biggest blow is undoubtedly the inability to see progress, but once they can see it, they will definitely be more motivated. Although the sound was heard, it did not leave any trace in Zhao Cheng's mind. Once the mark was left, thoughts arose and his heart became restless. At the beginning, Zhao Cheng's spirit was not pure enough, and the sage mode that emerged after exercise was easily disrupted. However, now, it can be sustained for a continuous period of time. In this state, the speed of energy recovery is also much faster than usual. This state, I don't know how long it has been, but suddenly Zhao Cheng's heart stirred up a wave. Then, his whole body suddenly became fixed, and that feeling was like a dragon in a painting, with its eyes lit, giving Zhao Cheng a strange sense of completeness. Immediately after, a natural enlightenment appeared in Zhao Cheng's heart. One's own essence has finally adapted to this world, or in other words, this world has adapted to this essence. In the blink of an eye, a nearly transparent panel suddenly appeared in front of Zhao Cheng. Even with his eyes closed, the panel was still clearly visible. Panel source point. 0 realm. Entering stillness, 52%. Traits. What? The law of heaven rewards diligence, and every effort will bring rewards. Panel. Sword type, residual, 13%, red. Upper limit of swordsmanship level +3, moderate increase in sword affinity, moderate decrease in proficiency required for swordsmanship improvement vitality. 1.5, 1.0, strength. 6.1, 5, agility. 6.55, physical fitness. 5.55, spirit. 7.25, skill. 17th Basic Swordsmanship 6th Edition LV4, LV8, 6/300, simulation count. 0 store, what? Zhao Cheng's gaze swept over the panel, which was really called a panel, and at a rough glance, Zhao Cheng did not find the plus sign. Subsequently, he became calm and composed, starting from the top. Firstly, with the panel, Zhao Cheng's attention was focused and he suddenly realized. Panel. The manifestation of a certain aspect of one's own characteristics. Next is the source point. Source point. An extremely special energy or currency that can achieve certain transactions or mysterious equivalent exchanges. Next is the realm. Realm. The data-driven cultivation system of self-awareness. Next is the trait. Trait. The manifestation of the origin, the cornerstone of the existence of life. As for the subsequent vitality, the four-dimensional attributes of strength, agility, physique, and spirit, as well as skills, are also the embodiment of Zhao Cheng's self-awareness. Among vitality. The driving force behind the existence of life. Strength. Reflects the explosive power of the body. Speed. Reflects the speed of neural reflex. Physical fitness. Body density, recovery ability. Spirit. The intensity of spiritual power. Skills. Abilities in self-awareness. Simulation frequency. A partial manifestation of one's own characteristic strength, possessing incredible abilities that can interfere with time and space, transcending dimensions. Store. A partial manifestation of one's own trait power, with the core being equivalent exchange and the outer layer being influenced by spatiotemporal information interference, but it tends to lean towards and intercept beneficial parts of self-awareness. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Entering silence. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 9. Entering silence. Zhao Cheng's own experience, if it involves concepts such as time, space, and dimensions, is only the process he traversed. Traversing is definitely a process, even from one world to another, and the distance between them must exceed the cognitive limits of humanity. Zhao Cheng speculated that perhaps it was the process of traveling through time and space that led him to discover some strange changes. Under this change, a trait called it was born, which was strange and powerful, even so powerful that Zhao Cheng himself could not see its full picture, so only a partial effect was revealed. As for the other part, it is still a bunch of question marks. And now the known part is already extraordinary enough. The first effect is that hard work pays off, and the ability is simple and rough. As long as you work hard, there will be rewards, even if the rewards are small, but they do exist. You should know that in reality, sometimes the cruelest thing is that no matter how much effort you put in, there will be no rewards. The emergence of this ability undoubtedly breaks this law. The other part is the panel that Zhao Cheng saw. Obviously, the core of the panel is not those data-driven attributes, but the source points, simulation times, and stores inside. The core of these three columns is the equivalent exchange of some kind of supernatural, and as for the specific performance, Zhao Cheng needs to explore it himself. Everything displayed on the panel changes according to my cognition, which is what I expect to exist, and that's how it becomes tangible. As long as I want, it can be constantly changing. Zhao Chengxin, however, knew that he could freely modify each column on the panel, but this modification had little significance. At most, changing the name would not change his own essence. At the same time, Zhao Cheng did not change his thoughts on these columns. The columns in front of him were exactly the things he most wanted to know in his cognition. The method of obtaining the source point is currently unknown, but since this column exists, there must be channels to obtain the source point in this world. There is a progress rate of 52% in Jing, which is not much different from my previous estimation, it's just not as accurate. I still have a considerable distance from the swordsman. Zhao Cheng thought to himself, but he began to study each column in detail. His swordsmanship level is proficient, but swordsmanship level does not represent the level of cultivation. A high level of swordsmanship may not necessarily mean a high level, but its progress is definitely extremely fast. Conversely, if the level is high, the swordsmanship level is definitely not low. The two complement each other, but there is a time difference in transformation. Swordsmanship is a tool for elevating the level of life, not just the level of life itself, and the two have a primary and secondary relationship. In this world, the beginning of cultivation is a process of gradually purifying the mind and purifying the body. In terms of swordsmanship, a swordsman can only be considered an apprentice, and it can even be said that he has not yet entered the field of swordsmanship. As for how to purify the spirit and body, there are many methods, but all of them are related to swordsmanship. You can practice swordsmanship, comprehend swordsmanship, and even learn from heaven and earth. In short, it is to achieve spiritual improvement. At the beginning of Kendo, there were countless explanations for this process, and it was not until time entered modern times when the country reorganized its cultivation system and ushered in the era of universal cultivation that a unified title emerged. At the beginning of cultivation, the practice of purifying the mind is called entering stillness. When the mind and spirit are purified to a certain level, the body will also undergo changes, which is called refining the physical body. The pinnacle of tranquility is difficult to measure spiritually, but manifested in the body, where 30% of the force is concentrated at a point, without the need for special force techniques. With every move and gesture, 30% of the force can be concentrated at a point and burst out. This is something that ordinary people cannot achieve, because it is not a difference in skills, but a difference in physical structure, and innate endowments have already changed. At the pinnacle of tranquility, due to the strength of the mind, the body also begins to evolve adaptively, and the first step in this evolution is the nervous system. A stronger nervous system brings about a stronger burst, but at the same time, there must be enough spiritual power to control it, otherwise the nervous system will become too strong and cause a backlash. According to some articles that Zhao Cheng read online, some laboratories abroad have not yet considered using life technology to replicate the nervous system of swordsmen and mass-produce super warriors. And the final result is that the nervous system is easy to replicate, but the mental power of the experimental subject cannot be controlled, and in the end, it is almost always the result of a nervous system disorder, which refers to the subconscious. With 30% of his strength gathered, he stood in front of the threshold of the swordsman and took another step forward, which is called the swordsman level. This step is a qualitative transformation of the spirit. Before the transformation, the strong spiritual power at most makes people feel very energetic, and their eyes are brighter than ordinary people. And once this step is taken, spiritual power will truly begin to materialize, from emptiness to reality. Of course, this materialization is not about spiritual interference with matter, but about using dry spirit to give birth to one's own momentum. Zhao Cheng's mentor Wu Nian said that the towering momentum is a manifestation of spiritual power after it has been substantiated. In history, some Taoist priests in ancient times were skilled in lightning techniques and could use their 5 lightning sword fingers to strike and kill a fierce tiger with just one strike. The tiger's appearance was unscathed, which undoubtedly represented a form of spiritual power utilization. The name of the realm of cultivation is not arbitrarily chosen. Entering stillness means that one has a sense of stillness, and only when one is calm can one remain stable. Otherwise, stability is just empty talk. And the thing of stillness is just a rootless duckweed, unable to withstand wind and rain. Only when it has settled down and taken root can it have the power to resist wind, frost, snow, and rain. So in ancient times, entering a certain realm was considered as the beginning of swordsmanship, not intentionally raising the threshold, but in fact. Only with determination can one have a root. With one's own foundation in swordsmanship, can one have the day to grow into a towering tree, and the process is like seed germination. As for before settling in, it's just seeds that haven't sprouted yet. Even if the seeds are big, the future is limited. But if it takes root, it will naturally be completely different. Once the spirit takes root, it generates its own momentum, and in a short period of time, both physical fitness and cohesive strength will experience an explosive growth. Especially in terms of the strength of cohesion, the lowest is the 50% strength of cohesion, and the best among them are even 60–70%. Legend has it that some experts with deep foundations have broken through this level, and in a short period of time, they have condensed the embryonic form of the sword heart and stood at the pinnacle of the swordsman. The pinnacle of a swordsman, not to mention the spiritual aspect, is the most prominent feature of the physical body, which is completely refined, pure, and every move can condense 10% of the strength. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Admission. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Admission. In ancient times, these characters were all terrifying killing machines. You should know that an ordinary person can only exert 10% of their strength without exercise, and if they are proficient in the technique of exerting force, they can at most unleash 20% of their strength. And the person standing at the pinnacle of swordsmanship has a strength of 10%, which is already 5 times the difference. But it should be clear that the physical fitness and basic strength of swordsmen are several times that of ordinary people. Some individuals with exceptional talents, through exercise, can have a physical fitness that is 5 or even 10 times that of an average person. For example, the ancient overlord was a true innate divine power that could carry a cauldron before cultivation. When cultivation was completed, with heavy armor and a giant sword on the battlefield, it was a ruthless meat grinder that could block the killing of gods and Buddhas. As for the swordsman above, he is called Jianhao, and in practice, he is called Jinxiang. The so-called elephant is a myriad of elements, with its sword heart condensed and reflecting the universe. It captures the powerful spirit from the heavens and earth, refines it into its own sword heart, sharpens its sharpness, and makes it unstoppable. At this point, physical fitness has become secondary, and the key is mental health. A powerful sword heart is the ultimate transparency, not only able to recite without hesitation, but also able to transform spiritual thoughts into sharpness, fighting in the long sky and subduing soldiers without fighting. As for how to practice this step, Zhao Cheng is unclear. Although there is some scattered information online, the specific details are not something that Zhao Cheng can access now. Anyway, it's extremely powerful. As for going further up, there is the sword saint, also known as sitting and forgetting in practice. In ancient times, this type of character belonged to the great master of the founding sect, with divine dragons seeing the head but not the tail. In modern times, even in the information society, this is the same. Zhao Cheng only knew that it was said that the soul was born from the heart, and the sword soul, or rather the soul, was forged hard. Although there are various claims that people have souls, in reality, ordinary people have no souls at all. The so-called spirit is just a concept that combines the subconscious and conscious. Although it can be observed through scientific means, what is observed is only a completely unstable fluctuation, and there is no possibility of detachment from the body. But the sword soul is the ultimate spiritual cohesion. Sitting and forgetting without me, but the soul is born. Powerful spiritual power can even interfere with matter, achieving the cutting of iron with a wooden sword and the breaking of gold with a bullet finger. This gold is not metal, but diamond. The sword saint has already reached such a mysterious level, but this is not yet the end of cultivation. Above the sword saint, it is said that there are also mythological levels, swordsmanship myths, or sword gods, also known as divine transformations in practice. This scene is said to be a soul turning against the heavens and transforming into a primordial spirit. After the achievement of the primordial spirit, it is no longer confined to the physical body. The spirit changes at its extreme and gradually reaches an incredible level. It becomes clear from the gods, changes the sky and strikes the earth, and even transforms the primordial spirit into a sword, killing people thousands of steps away. The realm of Sword Saint can be found online with some empirical evidence to prove that certain descriptions are not artistic processing, but can truly be achieved. But when Zhao Cheng first saw the sword god, he felt like he was reading a mythological story. When it comes to past lives, there is also a saying in various supernatural novels that cultivates immortals and consolidates the essence. But that kind of path that has been around for thousands of years, intercepting various spiritual mechanisms from heaven and earth, is both difficult and ultimately becomes the ultimate spiritual being. And in this world, there is no extraordinary energy, it is purely the evolution of the body and spirit, and the result is the hard aggregation of the soul and the cultivation of the primordial spirit, which is really a bit scary. But since there is such a statement, it is definitely not groundless. Genshin Impact Sword, killing 1,000 steps, that is no longer a human, but an immortal, a true sword immortal. Until later, Zhao Cheng devoted himself to practicing swordsmanship and realized that it was not impossible. If you don't look at your past life, then you don't think there is anything, but as long as you compare it with your past life, his swordsmanship talent in this life should be placed in the past life. How could he be a once-century swordsmanship genius? In this world, his swordsmanship talent can only be considered ordinary compared to the people around him. Not to mention the entire Xiangnan City, even in his own class, there are a few who have better swordsmanship talents than him. Even ordinary people are like this, it is hard to imagine how powerful the true genius in this world is. However, with the appearance of the panel at this moment, Zhao Cheng roughly understood why there was such a huge gap between the two worlds. The reason for the sword type in the traits column has already been explained. Sword type, residual, 13%, red. Upper limit of swordsmanship level +3, moderate increase in sword affinity, moderate decrease in proficiency required for swordsmanship improvement. This is an explanation of the effect of the sword type, and focus on the sword type, residual, 13%, with a detailed introduction. Sword seed. Influenced by strange information and influenced by the origin of the world, the born world talent, all sentient beings with spirits, are affected by interference. This explanation roughly means that this talent is present in all life forms in this world, even a dog has this endowment. Zhao Cheng's sword type has only a 13% completeness, and the effect is already so powerful. Those true geniuses have even higher completeness, and their talents are certainly more terrifying. A complete sword type is a red talent. According to the division of the panel, there are 5 levels of talent. White, blue, purple, gold, and red. Generally speaking, even if there is only a white talent, it must surpass at least 99% of people. True ordinary people have no talent, and even only gray talent. The so-called gray refers to negative talents, such as being born incomplete or bald, which belong to the debuff category and are not among the 5th level talents on the panel. Everyone in this world is born with a red talent, even if they are only incomplete. It is extraordinary, which is also the fundamental reason for the brilliant cultivation of swordsmanship in this world. And all of this, according to history, can be traced back to the Shang dynasty, when something absolutely happened. As for the 5-dimensional attributes associated with vitality under the traits, there is not much profound connotation. The values in parentheses represent the average of the human species in this world, which, if not specially trained, naturally matures and reaches its peak in life, around the age of 28. Zhao Cheng's 5-dimensional attributes are vitality. 1.5, 1.0, strength. 6.15, agility. 6.55, physical fitness. 5.55, spirit. 7.25, this data shows a substantial improvement of 1.5 times for each point. It can be seen that his attributes, especially his spirit, exceed the average by more than twice. In the past 6 months, his cultivation has been smooth, which is closely related to his strong spiritual power. When the spirit is strong, the will naturally become firm, which is a natural change, and vice versa. End of this chapter.